Welcome to Conscious Conversations, a place where East meets West, a place where conversations and ideas will challenge your minds, expand your consciousness, awaken your heart, and make you think more deeply about yourself and the world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm really excited for today's show. I'm Anthony Profeta, here with co-host, as always, Wes Gordon. How are you?
Good. Very good.
Love the way you look again today.
Thank
You're really
you.
looking very snazzy. I'm loving the vest. It's really cool.
Cool.
And we're very happy and honored to have back someone who we had on the show before. You might remember him from our talk on the ancient mystery schools, but I'm really honored, and I'm very thankful for Duncan Bowen to be back with us again.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Oh, cool. I'm really excited. First, before we do begin, I really want to thank you, because for all of you out there, Duncan is the founder of the Ancient Healings Conference, which is coming up July 10th and 11th here in Melbourne, Florida, at the Melbourne Auditorium. And so there's still tickets available. There's going to be many different vendors there. There's going to be many different speakers, 2 full days of speakers. So it's going to be a really wonderful event. And you can find more information and get your tickets at ancienthealingsconference.com. So again, thank you so much for being a sponsor of the show, and we're very happy for you for what you're put together, and we're really looking forward to it. But today we thought we'd talk about the topic of sort of finding our path, or choosing our path and finding our purpose. And I'm a firm believer that, the path doesn't have to be the same for everybody.
That's correct.
There's many different paths out there, and we choose what feels right to us and what resonates with us. The path of, Christ is not the path of Buddha, but they're all sort of going in the same direction. And there's this wonderful analogy from the Eastern philosophy, and it sort of also got adopted into the Western philosophy. I believe it was St. John of the Cross who wrote about ascending the Mount Carmel. But they talk about the path going, like trying to climb up a mountain. And no matter what path you're on, we're all trying to get to that same mountaintop.
Right.
And if you actually go to the mountain and walk around it, you'll see that there's many ways up this mountain. And, some might be longer, some might be a little bit windier, some might be steeper, some might be more filled with obstacles, some might be a little bit quicker and easier of a climb. But ideally, they're all getting or trying to get to that top of that mountain. So it really doesn't matter what path you choose, because once you get to the top, you realize that, I could have went that way, or I could have went that way, or I could have went that way. And so I really enjoy that analogy and like that analogy, because we're all trying to get to the same place, for lack of better words. But, it doesn't mean that every single person in the world has to follow that one way. In fact, I do like also there's this analogy by the Dalai Lama that he said if there was only one path that people followed, that would be like one restaurant serving just one meal over and over and over again. That's not going to fit everybody's tastes. There will be people who won't come to that just because of the nature of our mind. And then he said there will be people that after they're eating it the same thing every single day, they're going to get sick of it and not continue. So he said it's really good because there's so many billions of people in this world to have these varieties of paths for their personalities to choose from. But what are your takes on, finding our path, choosing our path?
Well, I think we have to go back to the foundation of the family we were born in, the culture, the location here on Earth. All those set the foundation for us to make those decisions to where we want to go. So oftentimes as we go through teenage years and then early adulthood, we're making choices. Are we going to follow in the same path as our parents?
Yes.
Or are we going to strike out on our own and be independent or rebellious even?
Right.
So those are some of the factors that come into play. And then I think those that choose a path are doing it so consciously. And so when we choose consciously is a lot better than just following in our parents' footsteps and doing the same thing, or maybe going to the same church or following that belief system. I think that we need to make conscious choices. Right. And some people are more aligned with that and have that inspiration. Like for me, I grew up, my parents went to a local church, but at 13, I wanted to quit, and so they allowed me to do that. And at 15, I read a book and I found what was going to be where it was going to take me. I didn't know that at the time, but I figured this was my connection. This is how I see it. And so that started me on at age 15.
Okay. And you're bringing up very good points now, because a lot of people are brought to that mountain just through the path of their parents. It's like they take them there and they say, this is the way you're going to go, and this is the way to go. And your sort of your own journey, you had very blessed parents who said, hey, you can stop. You don't have to continue on this thing. Because I also came from a family that was quite open-minded. I mean, my parents did take transcendental meditation courses in the early 80s, I believe it was. So they were more of the fact that, hey, if you have questions, go find answers however it might be. But you're also, the life that you had and the ability to go through different paths and find books and all that also correlates to St. Augustine, who wrote his famous book, The Confessions, because his mother was Catholic. And she would pray every day that he become a Catholic. And then he was so against it because of how hard his mother wanted him to do this, that then he went out on his own journey through Manichaeism and Platonism and all these sort of studying Greek philosophers and Cicero and all this sort of stuff. And he tried all of them and he found value in them, but ultimately he did circle back to Christianity and Catholicism. And he said his mother was never happier in that moment. But he did go out on that journey until he found what was right for him. And so what's your take on on choosing our path?
Well, I was born and raised in the Bible Belt, so it's kind of a scary place in this concept because it's one way or no way. But as you mature and grow up, you realize, it's an infinite being that we're all seeking to learn more about.
Right.
So why would infinity be limited to one path?
Excellent.
But what I discovered for myself is, regardless of the path you take, you're all going to step into certain universal laws, truths, and principles of the heart in that journey.
I believe.
And those will be pretty much aligned, even though you're going from a different angle or a different belief system.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think the path has to strike a chord within us,
Yes.
ring a bell, something that turns us on to enlightenment or to that's where I want to go.
Right.
And when that hits within inside of us, that's a real calling for us to follow.
Absolutely. And I think that's a fabulous point to bring up is that, when we do find the right path, we know it within. And then if we stay true to that path, it will take you all the way to that final goal, no matter what it is. And like you're saying, there are definitely universal truths that can be found that are touched upon in all these different paths. Just the fact of treating people with kindness or, that sort of golden rule or, the law of reciprocity that's found in every single path or tradition or faith that's out there in some way, shape, or form. They say basically, just be good to others and treat them as you want to be treated. And that's sort of a universal rule or a common thread, I like to call it, that goes through all the different traditions. And there are many other deeper spiritual truths and spiritual laws that come into play as well. But now, so once you find the path and once you get on this path, is there a way to know then or to discover what the purpose of getting onto this is?
I think before we answer that question, how about if we look at the path we choose or we kind of unconsciously get on? It may be a rocky path, it may be a windy path or a stormy path, or maybe easy. There's many paths there, and some of it we can choose, but oftentimes we end up like, why am I on this? It's really a rough road.
Yes.
And I think that we have to figure, if we have that connection, that internal connection with our belief system or God or whoever, that we can make it through that path and maybe kind of shift over to an easier path.
Right.
So do you see that too in your travels?
I do.
Types?
I mean, I've shifted many paths along my journey. I've walked many of them. I've stumbled and fell on many of them. I got, discouraged on many of them. But, and that moved me to where I'm at now. But I'm very grateful for each and every path I was on because it did bring me knowledge or deeper wisdom in certain things. It gave me understandings of maybe other paths in a different way, shape, or form. So many of the Christian beliefs and a lot of Jesus's teachings and advice, I gained a deeper and more powerful understanding of by studying Eastern philosophy. And so walking on that path allowed me to see Christ in a whole new light rather than just from this Western perspective. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But what about you, Wes?
Yeah, when you're on the path, for me, I noticed that you're ever expanding consciousness. So you're developing and learning more and more. It's when you stop growing or you get stagnant that I see that, can be an issue for some people. But as long as you're continually expanding, I think you're going down the path in the right direction as long as you keep opening up to your, you're not limited.
Right.
When you start thinking you're limited or small, then I think you're getting veered off into something that's not going to really serve you long term. You'll end up course correcting, I hope. Just like Buddha, he started out real wealthy.
Yes.
He got to see a physicality of the world and all the things how that worked. And, he was in luxury.
Yeah.
And then he stepped outside of the kingdom there and started seeing, hey, this is not how everybody else is living. What's going on? So he came from that, relative level of awareness and then went further into it.
Yeah.
So his journey was multi-layered, just like all of ours. This depends on where you start. Like you said, you was born in a certain place. You're influenced by certain things as you grow up.
Right. And that's a very good point. Also, St. Francis, came from a very wealthy family. His father was a textile merchant, was traveling to France, bringing back all these silks and luxury fabrics. And he renounced all of that and said, this is really not leading me in the way, I need to go. And he sort of, like Buddha, set out and gave all that up.
Yeah.
And as we're on that path, I think what happens too is that our friends, our relatives, don't understand why we've chosen that path, and we have to learn to deal with that as they have to learn to deal with us. As my mother would say, well, you're always a Baptist. I go, no, I'm not, But in her mind, that's what I was, Yeah. But it was okay because I moved on and she was okay with that.
Yeah.
But we have to learn how to answer questions and be okay within ourselves. And that takes a long time for some people to get that comfort.
Yeah, and that's an absolute excellent point. But I think we need to stop here. We're going to continue from that point when we come back. But please stay tuned. We have a lot more to talk about after these messages. Welcome back. We're here having a wonderful discussion with our special guest, Duncan Bowen, and we're talking about choosing our path and finding our purpose. And I think you brought up a very good point, that sometimes when we do choose our path, friends, family think maybe, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? I know in my own case, just not from the spiritual path, but, well, I guess in some ways, moving from medicine to meditation, people thought I lost my mind.
You're not going to make any money with that.
They're trying to reel me back in. What are you going to do? I don't get it. You're becoming a yoga teacher? You're going to pay the bills and all that sort of stuff. And so there were even some friends that maybe even, ended their friendship with me because of that. Yeah. And so, but I always felt that I had to follow my heart. And I felt a deep calling to this path. And so, I'm in the beginning, it was a struggle. Maybe no one would show up to a class, or I'd have one person. But thankfully now it's completely different. And I never would have seen this journey happening in the way that it did. And if I didn't follow my heart, I wouldn't have got here, which I'm very grateful to, because now what I'm doing doesn't even feel like a job. But, I do believe that your last statement of once you're on that path, you really have to feel comfortable in it and have it resonate with you and all of that is a very, very important thing. And if we have a deep calling of our heart, don't step away from that.
That's right. That's when we're in alignment. We're in alignment with our belief systems and our connection. And when we're lined up, I think we can do anything. And that's when we're receiving information and exploring out with other people that they will see in a sense that we got something that maybe we ought to talk more about, or to hang out with that person, whichever.
Right. And do you think it's when we're in that alignment and when we're following our heart's call that it's in that actual moment that we do find our purpose?
Sometimes it is like a split second, like all of a sudden, this is it. I know myself. I have my connection now. And for other people, they might struggle a little bit. Right. I think for those that struggle, they're trying to get rid of the debris that they've accumulated in their lifetime from their families, their culture, and their indoctrinations, trying to battle that internal, well, should I go this way or that way? How do I see the world? So as soon as they can get through the shells of those and break them, I think that's when we can bust forth into the path what we're really supposed to do, and then into our purpose.
Right, and I think that's a really good point, because I think many people out there, I think they do struggle with finding their purpose. What am I supposed to do? What am I really called for? What is my real mission and purpose in this life? And I think some people think it just has to come from, well, what gifts do I have that I can share with the world? But sometimes it's not only about just what gifts we have. Sometimes the purpose is also found in interactions with people and others.
Oh, sure. Because we stimulate and we act off each other. We connect with each other. So you might say something that will oh, that's the answer to the question, that I've been pondering or wondering about.
Yeah.
So I think relationships are where it's really about, human relationships, because we all can learn from each other. We can stimulate each other. A conversation on the phone or in person can really lead people to grow and to raise up in their vibrations.
Oh, that's an excellent point. I think relationships are a big stimulant for those sort of things. If you sort of seclude yourself, and you just go say, all right, I'm done with this. I'm giving up life. I'm going to go live in the cave till I die. I don't know how much growth, you still get growth. Definitely still get growth. There are many people that have done that throughout their lives, and they found the answers and they found their purpose and they've reached the top of that mountain. But I really think when you're in interactions with people and they can poke your buttons, it's a real test to how well is the path working for you.
Right. I think the days of living in the caves and in monasteries and shrines and those sorts of things should be over, because we've got to raise the consciousness of Earth. And the best way to do it is get out of those places and take the message out, help people connect so that we can move faster.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. And what about you, Wes? What about this whole idea of finding one's purpose and people who might struggle with that?
Oh, absolutely. Each one of us is unique, and we all have a special gift, the way that we translate our experience. And that's unique to us, and we need to explore and expand that as much as possible. Live from your heart and soul.
Yeah.
And the programming of our society beats that out of us and makes us not trust it. And we chase a dollar thinking that's my career. If it makes me money, then that's my heart.
Right.
And you're dying on your feet when you live like that. And I, like you, want the consciousness of the planet, which I think is raising, to start coming from the heart and soul.
Right.
And then when you share your uniqueness, everybody has more abundance and life is richer. Right now we're living like survival mode. We're like attacking each other and just fighting to figure it out, when I don't think that's how we were designed to actually live.
Now, do you have ways that can help somebody find their purpose in life?
Well, first they've got to want it. I mean, a lot of people don't even wake up to what we're talking about. They're like, that's a waste of time. Like I had one person say, you meditate, and I said, that's a waste of time. What do you mean, just sitting? I'm like, no, that's very soul enriching. There's so much going on there that's bringing out stuff that you need to see about yourself.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to be different. Like Duncan was saying, you're going to jump into something, and you're going to know after a while whether or not you should continue doing that. And that's part of your experience of learning, okay, this doesn't work for me.
Right.
I need to find something else or do something different. Whatever jumps out at you. That's where the Celestine Prophecy was really, I thought, fruitful, because it got you to raise your awareness to, is that jumping out at you? Go check it out then.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what about you, Duncan? Any ideas that can help people find their purpose if they are struggling on,
Well, I think what I've always recommended to people is to, go to the bookstore and explore some of the books in the self-help section or spirituality, and whatever pops out or falls on the floor at their feet, that may be something they need to explore. That's what I used to do.
Yeah.
And I still do it. I like going just to see what's out there. But I think also getting out and being with people of like-mindedness.
Yes.
And the like-mindedness just means, could be, we can differ in some of our belief systems, but we feel comfortable with those people. Right. And when you feel comfortable with those people, we can still have a good time, even though our philosophies or approaches may be a little different.
Right.
So I think getting out of the cave and exploring and offering and being with people is where it's all about.
That's a good point. I mean, finding community, or even if you can't find one, build your own community. Right. It's a wonderful and powerful thing, because we do have that. And again, it comes into that relationship, and also it helps us to recognize maybe within us what sort of gifts or talents we do have, because maybe other people will say, oh, I really like that about you. And we never were aware of it.
Right.
But, then we say, oh, wow, okay. And now we know that that's something that maybe we can share more of with others and with the world. I also believe that, sometimes just telling our story can flesh out our purpose. Because if we can share with people maybe what we have gone through and how we've overcome some of the obstacles or challenges in our life, that can then encourage them or help them, or maybe be helpful to them in overcoming them if they're going through similar situations or obstacles or challenges.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But some of the things about telling your story is, in psychology, where I work with people and their personal problems, they get stuck telling that story over and over again, their painful story.
Yeah.
But they have to pull out of that at some point and say, that's the story, and say, this is what I'm doing now. I've taken it to another level. Yeah. So I think that let's tell the story. Let's keep the story, the journey going.
Yes.
Because we all are on a journey, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So the journey takes us in different places and doing different activities. I've enjoyed my life, and it's sort of like I'm waiting for more to unfold.
Right.
So.
And that's an excellent point too, because some people do become then like the victim or so attached to their story that they never get out of that cycle. But something that I found throughout all the different sort of paths that I've walked upon, though, is that many of them do say the purpose of life, if we dive down to the depth of the rabbit hole, it's really to open ourselves up, raise our consciousness so that we can become channels for divine love into the world. It's like we've fallen into this world of darkness. There is a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of good deeds that are done, but we've fallen into this world, and now we're called to open ourselves so that love can be shared with those around us. And our purpose is to really cultivate that seed, open up the heart so that, God can love the world through us.
Definitely. Because we're all sparks of God. We all have a different thread or an ability or a ray that we're going to emit out to the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when we have that, let's educate it, let's build it up, let's fortify it so that we can make that thread, that beacon of light stronger within us, because we'll attract more people in, we'll help more people. We're obviously coming from the heart place,
Yep.
So.
Yep.
That's a beautiful place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep. But I think we need to end right here. But before we end the show, I do just want to talk again about the Ancient Healings Conference. So just tell everybody out there what's going to be going on these 2 days. And it's going to be July 10th and 11th at the Melbourne Auditorium, but you know more about it.
Right. Well, we're opening up at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's when I'll do the opening ceremonies. We have a good presentation. We have Christopher Timms doing our opening plenary talk. And then we lead into workshops the rest of the day. There'll be 3 workshops every hour to choose from. And we have 40 plus exhibitors right now. And I think it's just going to be a fun, great time. We have a few other little surprises throughout the conference that will kind of spur people to kind of like have a little fun. So it's going to be a great time. It's all about fellowship. It's about connecting. It's about learning something new. And of course, you're going to be there. So I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
So.
and it's going to be wonderful. We all had a really wonderful time. It didn't happen last year because of the pandemic, but the year before that, it was really, really great. So please go to ancienthealingsconference.com to learn more. Get your tickets. It's going to be a wonderful time, and we'd love for you to join us. Thank you all. We love you. We appreciate you, and we hope you have a blessed and beautiful day.